Report. Yes. Okay, so the textbook is it just as a footnote, historical footnote, when the Course in Miracles was originally published, it was published in as you know, there's 3 volumes, textbook, workbook, manual for teachers. It was published with the textbook first, then the workbook, then the manual for teachers. That's the way in which Helen and Bill received it. That's the sequence. They got the textbook first, and then there was a pause of 6 months, and then the workbook started, and there was a pause, and then the manual for teachers started. So that's historically been the textbook shows up first. If you have a combined version, the textbook will be right up front. So in some ways, this is the beginning of A Course in Miracles. Having said that, we read in the manual for teachers that for some people, starting with the workbook is the better starting point. And for other people, starting with the manual for teachers will be a better idea. So it's not a rigid, hard and fast rule of where one begins, but this is where we're at in this group. And just by looking ahead, we'll continue to read sequentially in the textbook all the way through to chapter 31. That's the plan at this time. Any questions about what we're up to here? So, hello and welcome to Miracles on High Plains. My name is Jonica, and our reader today is Heather C.
Text introduction. This is A Course in Miracles. It is a required course. Only the time you take it is voluntary. Free will does not mean that you can establish the curriculum. It means only that you can elect what you want to take at a given time. The course does not aim at teaching the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. It does aim, however, at removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. The opposite of love is fear, but what is all-encompassing can have no opposite. This course can therefore be summed up very simply in this way. Nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God.
Mm-hmm. So right away in the introduction, they start talking about time and the relationship to time. Only the time you take it is voluntary, but taking this course is required. Now, that's a big thought. It's a required by who? Required to enter into the gates of heaven. It's required to restore the memory of your true inheritance, to remove the blocks of your awareness so that your conscious recognition of the presence and meaning of love is restored. So, and then they talk about another theme that these are themes that echo throughout the course about the meaning of love. Turns out that's not something that can be taught. The meaning of love, think of it as an infinitely extensible concept, not the earthly meaning of love, but the divine universal meaning of love is a concept that extends throughout all the creation. Therefore, it's not something that can simply be learned. And that is not the goal of the course. And so it makes it very clear right in the introduction what is the task ahead in the Course of Miracles. It's to remove the blocks to our awareness of spirit, of love, of divine presence, removing the blocks. And once the blocks are removed, your natural inheritance, the divine light within you, naturally extends in your conscious mind and then out into your relationships and into the world. So, right in the introduction, they introduce some of the major themes that will come up, and it would be remiss not to mention this last quote. It might be one of the most often quoted lines in the Course of Miracles. Nothing real can be threatened. For in other words, the divine creation, which echoes throughout eternity and never changes, cannot really be threatened. There's nothing going to stop it. And but the mind that believes in illusions would beg to differ and would be concerned about the other things. And so then the corollary is that nothing unreal, the illusions of time, those things which are changing and appear to have meaning, but do not rest upon eternal foundations, don't really exist. And once you learn to see and perceive through that lens that the creation is solid and steady and unchanging, and the illusions are transient and meaningless, then it makes perfect sense. The blocks have been removed, and the natural peace that is within us is restored to our awareness. Herein lies the peace of God. Heather?
Yeah, I'm so glad we're doing this over again, but it became really clear to me as we're reading this that one of the stumbling blocks right out of the gate is for people to get this last line: nothing real can be threatened, nothing real unreal exists. And that, it's such a contrary idea to what we see in the physical world. So for me, right out, the thing that is so helpful is that nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists to my soul. So if I make that distinction right from the very beginning, it helps me separate that it's not my physical eyes that are seeing things, it's my spiritual eyes. So if I take that perspective right from the beginning all the way through the course, it makes much more sense.
Exactly. And just as Heather clarified it there, the way my soul sees things, we know that this is thread carries throughout the Course of Miracles. For instance, the worldly view would be seeing is believing. If I see it with my eyes, then I believe it's true. And so that would be a time space, even though it might disappear within moments of time, I still believe it's true. So there's a very distinctly different way of perceiving the nature of reality. And this, of course, takes training and learning and mind teaching in order to make your own. David, you had your hand up.
Good morning, everyone. Yes, thank you, Jonica. I just wanted to clarify because I get very easily confused, and I'm glad you brought it up. I don't want to dwell on this, but there's two versions of the course. We're doing the blue book, which is the FIP version. The purple book is the COA version, right?
The things you said, those two versions, yes. What we're going to be reading from is the original edition, another version, David, that you didn't mention. And so I don't want to get bogged down a whole lot in it, but we're going to be reading a different edition than that. This is the edition sometimes referred to, I'll just do a little history here, as the Hugh Lynn Casey version. And why does it have that name? Because in the 60s and early 70s, when the course was coming through, both Bill and Helen became interested in the Edgar Casey teachings. They thought there was some similarity with what she was experiencing. And they went to the Center for Edgar Casey's Teachings, ARE, in Virginia, and they carried a copy with them. This was prior to the publication. This is a copyright violation here. So they carried a copy with them and gave it to Hugh Lynn Casey. And so that's why they call it the Hugh Lynn Casey version. And they distributed several other copies to other people. And that's the version we're going to be reading from.
Okay, thank you. That actually just confused me even more because I have 3 different copies of A Course in Miracles here, and I don't want to dwell on this, but it's really important to me because we know whose voice this is, and these versions are different. And I guess I can understand why evangelists stick to the script. That each sentence is so exquisitely crafted with the exact precise word. Some versions are different, and that really throws me. So I'm glad we're not doing the COA book because that's different. I'm glad we're using the original interpretation. And I hope I've got this right. I've got 2 of them in front of me. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. My apologies for the confusion. I knew this might happen. Nevertheless, we'll go on. So there was a movie called Mr. Church, wherein he said, borrowed this quote, that while you read a book from the beginning to the end, you understand the book when you get to the end. That's when you understand the beginning. And that is very true of what we are about to read in A Course in Miracles. It appears at the beginning, but many people will find they do not really understand it until they get to the end. In fact, the Course alludes to this principle when it says that the script is written and that when experience will come to end your doubting has been set. For we but see the journey from the point at which it ended, looking back on it, imagining we make it once again, reviewing mentally what has gone by. Well, this is about a time-shifting experience, about a beginnings and endings and looking back and understanding better the beginnings once we got to the end. So with that in mind, we'll read the principles with that, and hopefully this will help you if it's not altogether clear right from the onset. Heather, you had a comment?
Yeah, this statement is so perfect. This is why every time we go through the course again, we understand it better because we're understanding the end from the beginning all over again. And now we have experience, and then the new experiences that come, they all fit into that. So I love this. It describes the course exactly.
You saw the point. That's exactly the reason why we want to take a pause in our reading to share that. So with that, we jump into the principles.
Principles of miracles. 1. There is no order of difficulty among miracles. One is not harder or bigger than another. They are all the same. All expressions of love are maximal. 2. Miracles as such do not matter. The only thing that matters is their source, which is far beyond the human evaluation. Do you want me to stop after each one and we'll discuss it, or keep going?
Read the next one, then we'll pause.
3. Miracles occur naturally as expressions of love. The real miracle is the love that inspires them. In this sense, everything that comes from love is a miracle.
Mhm. So one thing is certain that miracles of which we're reading the principles do not adhere to the laws of time and space, the world, the laws of survival of the fittest, the laws of this world. They are different. And so they are, in many cases, the reversal of assumptions made about the nature of the world. And one of them, which again can be understood perhaps better after you finish the course, is this idea that there's no order of difficulty. Another way of saying is that there's not a hierarchy in amongst miracles where we've got some of them that are grand miracles or are huge and eminent, preeminent, and others that are little miracles. There is no hierarchy amongst miracles. They're all the same. Why? Because they all are expressions of their source, which is love. And though it doesn't appear to our human minds, all expressions of love are maximal. This gets down to what is the meaning of love, which we're not going to address here. But the assumption that there is little love and big love is absolved by this principle. All expressions of love are maximal. And as a matter of fact, the way in which the miracle is expressed, the form in which it takes in time and space does not matter at all. What matters is that it is an extension of the source, which cannot be evaluated, judged, measured, or fully understood using limited little mind thinking. Kim?
This is really cool because it feels like this is the first time I've read this, and it's definitely not. But here's the cool thing. I had a light bulb moment, and it has to do with the love concept. And what I love is that it's very clear that the love part cannot be taught. So in my work, I've been trying to teach the love part, and I have been getting frustrated that people are not getting the love part. And so now I see that it's far beyond human evaluation. And so this is just a thing that I need to accept in love, right? In love, because I've been frustrated. I need to accept that that comes when it comes. And it's about God and the person, not me.
Yeah, very true, Kim. Very true. Thank you. Noel?
That was beautiful, Kim, and so true. I'm especially struck by number 2. Miracles as such do not matter. My tendency is to wish for and pray for a big spectacular miracle in whatever area of life. And this humbles me because it points us back to the second sentence there. The only thing that matters is the source. And that's what I really should be focusing on. And the so-called miracle, or even what I'm not only wishing for, but outlining as a miracle, doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah, and there's a corollary to this, Noel, is what you said is so true. There's a corollary which is really a big thought, and we'll get to it later on, but I'm going to introduce it now. There is really only one miracle in all eternity. It's the miracle of creation. You could say that when the Creator decided to bring forth all of creation, that initiative, that purpose, his will to bring it all forth and express it in an infinite number of ways, that's the miracle. And all the expressions that you and I experience are various forms that show up in time and space. But Noel, they all have the same source. They all come from that one original will to create, will to express love in an infinite number of ways. And that's why we say there's no one that's any bigger than the other. It's only the source that matters. Okay, let's do the next three.
All miracles mean life, and God is the giver of life. His voice will direct you very specifically. You will be told all you need to know. 5. Miracles are habits and should be involuntary. They should not be under conscious control. Consciously selected miracles can be misguided. 6. Miracles are natural. When they do not occur, something has gone wrong.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, number 4, you will be told all you need to know is part of the lesson, learning to listen to the voice of the Holy Spirit. Learning to pause when any event occurs and your ego jumps in and says, I don't like that. To learn to pause and realize, well, that's just the ego criticizing and rejecting the moment. And then look within to what does the Holy Spirit, to invite the Holy Spirit's perspective on the matter, and learn to trust that you will be told all that you need to know. And so this is something that we learn over time, to pay less attention to the ego, pay more attention to the Holy Spirit. It's a faith and a trusting mechanism. The one thing that we know is that we're guaranteed that his voice is always involved, always cares, and is always present in the moment. Heather?
Yeah, number 5 is, I think, exactly what Kim was just describing. That they should be involuntary. When we're struggling and trying to make a miracle happen and get somebody to see things, we're trying to have it under conscious control. So it's not under our control; it's under the control of the Holy Spirit. So that's very helpful.
Yeah, and Noel also said, I'm looking for the big one. I'm looking, really interested, invested in the big miracle. This proves number 5 to be far more profound of an insight than might first appear. 4, it's not something that the ego wants to be in control of and guide you in situations. So that is familiar. It's initiatives to immediately try to direct how you should respond. Being not in control by the ego is the new perception. That's the environment in which we are being directed very specifically by the voice of the Holy Spirit. So that it's not under conscious control. It's not the ego saying, well, based upon my past, I know what this situation demands. It's not using that judgmental mechanism. In fact, the warning is here, trying to with respect to make a miracle happen, consciously selected miracles can be misguided. That would be consciously trying to control. Hey, let's have a miracle now, and I'm, going to decide what form that should be. Can be misguided. Later on, I think it's principle. Well, we'll get to it. Special principles for miracle workers. Will you introduce the term of indiscriminate miracles? I'll mention it now. An indiscriminate miracle is one that you feel obligated and compelled, that you've decided for yourself needs to be done now. Something needs to be done, and I'm going to do it. That would be a miracle that is not being directed specifically by the voice, but is being directed by yourself, even with an intention to do good. That'll be different than a Christ-directed miracle, which will be involuntary, will emerge into your awareness because you'll be directed very specifically, and you'll know in that moment, I have to do this. This is why I'm here. It's about it very much involves being in the present moment, not a rehearsed version from the past or a pre-planned version of the future, but responding in the moment to what you're being directed to do. Kim?
So is it a vision problem when we're not seeing the miracles? Because they're always happening, correct? They're always happening. And so if we're not seeing them, it's a vision problem, correct?
It's both vision as well as a perception problem, because we're yes, if we use perception and vision to mean the same thing here, it's that we are attending to other matters other than what Holy Spirit would direct us to do. So when we attend to the Holy Spirit, meaning the term used in the Course is miracle ready state of mind. You're attending to spirit guidance. That's when miracles become natural. And that's when our will and the guidance of the Holy Spirit are aligned and unified. And so then they happen naturally. And when we say naturally, think many times in a day. Not necessarily every minute. We're not becoming obsessive here, but many miracles in a day. And one more thing has to be said about those is, Kim, they're involuntary. They're not under conscious control. So when they happen, the part of your mind that my mind wants to take credit for it and says, oh, there goes my third miracle of the day. Aren't I doing great? That part that's evaluating my performance, if you will, is not really part of the picture, because it's not under conscious control. It's involuntary. It's following the voice very specifically, but it's more like letting go and letting God, rather than charged up Jonica jumping into, I can fix this and take credit for it mode. It's not that. It's letting God do what God has directed us to do. Heather?
I was not going to say anything, but it just keeps coming back. This very first one, all expressions of love are maximal. And so that's hitting me in a very different way. Sometimes, some people give us the best love they have, and I can judge that as not good enough. And so I just really love that we don't know people's capacity, only God does. And so whatever expression of love they are capable of giving in that moment is maximal for them. And if it's not enough for me, the Holy Spirit will provide, the rest of that. So I just love that, we can't judge. We just can't judge that when someone expresses love in the best way they can, that's their maximal expression of it. And that if we need more than that, the Holy Spirit's the one that will provide that. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but it just really hit me.
Yeah. I want to expound on that a little bit, just to go into the psychological realm, because one of the most favorite judgments with regards to love not being adequate is to judge one's parents and the way in which they tried to provide for us as not being really good enough, not could have been better, not didn't meet all my needs. There's a tendency to think that we were lacking in love from our caregivers. If this doesn't apply to you, congratulations. I'm really glad that that's true for you. But many people carry guilt towards their parents about not showing up in the way that we wanted them to. And so that would be an example, Heather, it's classic, has done the world over of not of criticizing the expression of love that we got from our parents. And then, of course, this can carry into other parts, other relationships as well. And so, yes, we want to be grateful for the expressions of love that we receive, not sit there and evaluate their merit or their value to us.
Right.
Lauren?
Yeah, so I'm hearing that miracles are happening all the time, or several are occurring in a day. And are these miracles that are being brought forth by our own Holy Spirit, or are we recognizing that coming from other people? I guess I'm trying to kind of understand what a miracle looks like that I might be missing or that I'm seeing.
Yeah. From the Holy Spirit, from other people, yes, both. We would say what matters is their source, and if it comes from the Holy Spirit through somebody else, or from the Holy Spirit through you, same source. So it's not about what direction it comes from. I think your question really comes down into how do we recognize a miracle,
Yeah.
which really speaks to the form it takes. So I want to, I value that question. I want to keep it and wait until we get to just the right moment where it illustrates it perfectly. And I'm going to trust that something will come up because ultimately, Lauren, it's an expression of love. And so it can have lots of forms. It's not always in the form that we might insist it to be on, but it is nevertheless an expression of love. So we'll elaborate on that when we come to it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we'll go on.
7, miracles are everyone's right, but purification is necessary first. 8, miracles are a form of healing. They supply a lack, and they are performed by those who temporarily have more, for those who temporarily have less. 9, miracles are a kind of exchange, Like all expressions of love, which are always miraculous in the true sense, the exchange reverses the physical laws. They bring more love both to the giver and the receiver.
Okay, so let's read this last line is the indicator that a miracle involves love. It involves, Lauren, a giver and a receiver. We would say in common language, it's interpersonal. It's you and another person in some kind of encounter, some kind of exchange. And where does it come from? It comes from those who temporarily are more clear in their conscious mind of their relationship to source and flows to the person who is at that moment forgotten or less in touch with their source. So it comes from those who are trusting to those who are less trusting. But those characteristics that we talk about, we recognize them as momentary characteristics. They're temporary, they're not forever. And so a miracle worker is someone who in that moment is more in touch with their relationship to the Holy Spirit and source. Doesn't mean that they're better than the other person. And so it is a kind of exchange. It is interpersonal. This would be, and for those of you that are paying attention, you'll realize this is different than if you're sitting by yourself. Let's say you're doing your workbook lesson, sitting by yourself. I had this experience this morning, doing my workbook lesson, and all of a sudden, my eyes are opened to an understanding that I didn't have before. Well, that's an insight. That's a spiritual insight, an understanding, a shift in perception from not understanding and confusion to clarity. But that would not be the same as an exchange of love between a giver and a receiver. And many miracle students are very confused about this. So they have a tendency to label. So I'll just speak frankly here. Within the miracles community, there's a tendency to label everything that might have a spiritual tinge as a miracle. We just generally put all phenomenon that are where spirit is involved, label it a miracle. However, within A Course of Miracles, it has a richer vocabulary. It has more distinctions between a revelation, an insight, a prayer, a miracle, and there are others as well. That purpose is not to go deep into that right now, but just to say miracles do involve an exchange, a loving exchange, that someone who's somewhat conscious of the Holy Spirit that is serving or helping, maybe with words, maybe with a smile, maybe with an action, is helping another person in that moment. And this brings about healing of the mind. I find this really easy to explain. If you take a moment to help someone, let's say it's a perfect stranger, and you pause to help them out. Let's say an elderly woman drops her groceries on the way out of the store, and you stoop down to help her gather them up and put them back together. that moment of caring, that you cared enough to help her, is a healing moment. Can you see, Lauren, how that would be an expression of love? Not a big one, but there are no small miracles. That's a way of saying, you matter to me, and I'm going to bend over here and help you pick that up and see to it that you get to your car safely. It's a form of love. And that love heals the mind. That makes us feel like we're not alone, we're not separate, that we matter. And it's not said necessarily with words. You could do all those things without saying a word. Pick up the groceries. I've done this before. And then see to it that the person gets to their car safely and that they're on their way okay. So it takes many different forms, but the effect is always one of saying, you matter enough that I will take my time to help. Let's circle back to number 7, which is maybe more difficult. Purification is necessary first for miracles to happen. So, what do we mean by purification? We mean removing the obstacles to the awareness of love's presence. Because if, in the example I just said, the lady drops her groceries in front of me, and what's on my mind is, I don't know who this person is. I got my own life to live. That's got nothing to do with me. I'm going to ignore it and pretend like I never saw it and just keep going. If that's what's filling my mind, then that will act as an obstacle, meaning literally, I will choose to block the impulse to help and instead pursue my own selfishness. Now, that's one example, but this takes many examples. Purification meaning pardon my French, all my crap, all my guilt, all the junk that I've stored in my mind that might cause me to feel alienated and hostile and separate, that needs to be purified. That needs to be brought up to the light and offered to the Holy Spirit so that I'm free of it. And then miracles percolate up naturally through the layers of subconscious into our conscious mind. So we would say the condition for miracles is undoing the guilt, the hostilities, and the angers of the ego. All right. Feel free to raise comment anytime. Felicia, hi.
Hi. Yeah, I was waiting for you to say one word that I didn't hear you say. And I had had my hand raised. I put it back down because when you jump back up to 7, that's where I wanted to go. Because the purification, the one word that it brings up for me is our thoughts.
Yes.
The purification of our thoughts, the good thoughts against the bad thoughts. And that we get that by, spending time with the Holy Spirit. And we learn to be able to hear the voice.
Yes, we do.
I just wanted to mention the word thoughts.
Yes. Well, I think you were meant to contribute your part there. So that's just perfect. Yes. Purifying our thoughts and our feelings that would interfere with the miracles. It's a condition for miracles is that we get our own stuff out of the way. All right, let's go on to number 10.
The use of miracles as spectacles to induce belief is wrong, or better, is a misunderstanding of their purpose. They are really used for and by believers. 11. Prayer is the medium of miracles. Prayer is the natural communication of the created with the Creator. Through prayer, love is received, and through miracles, love is expressed.
So, miracles as spectacles to induce belief, that might go along with the idea of waiting for the big miracle that'll really get their attention, that will really prove this. So that would be a misuse, a misunderstanding of their purpose. Miracles are not used to prove anything. They are used by and for believers to help them to heal. It is so miracles have a purpose. They're here to remove the blocks to the awareness of love, to heal the separate split mind, and return the mind to a state of one-mindedness. That's its purpose. And it requires a certain amount of faith just to receive that gift, just to, and so this has to do with indiscriminate miracles as well. It says elsewhere, we'll get to it, that only Christ is in a position to know who would benefit in this moment by a miracle. You or I are, how would we judge that this person would benefit from a miracle there? We wouldn't know that. This is why they're involuntary. They're directed. Miracles are inwardly directed, not outwardly formulated to prove anything. Number 11, prayer is used along with miracles. It's a medium. In other words, it requires conscious awareness of that you have a part to play in God's plan for creation, that when you join your mind and your will with source, that then their love is looking to extend itself through you. That is a form of prayer when you're conscious. Doesn't have to involve words. It certainly does not have to involve a request for anything. It's just an acknowledgement of relationship. And so therefore, it becomes a form of friendship, if you will, a form of communication between the creator and the created. It reassures you that your union with the creator is present, alive, nurturing, and applicable. And that positions your consciousness to then serve the purpose of the Holy Spirit in bringing forth miracles. So prayer is the condition, the state of mind, of miracle mindedness that enables you to hear the voice of Spirit. I think it was number 4 or 5 we read today about the voice being directed specifically to what is needed. Well, in order to do that, you have to be consciously aware of presence. So miracles express love through you when your mind is in its natural state of not understanding your relationship. People have written books about this. Practice the presence of God. It's about a background awareness that we're never separate. Okay, how doing? We'll do one more. By the way, this I had some reservations because this is like a real intense review of global universal principles that apply to all people at all times in all places. So it's very big that way, big mind. And I find we can only consume so much of that in one setting. So we're going to pace ourselves with this. Felicia, now we get to your point.
Well, miracles are thoughts. Thoughts can represent lower order or higher order reality. This is the basic distinction between intellectualizing and thinking. One makes the physical, and the other creates the spiritual. And we believe in what we make or create. 13. Miracles are both beginnings and endings. They thus alter the temporal order. They are always affirmations of rebirth, which seem to go back, but really go forward. They undo the past and the present, and thus release the future.
I think we'll pause there. So we just said that miracles require an awareness of the presence of spirit in the form of prayer. It's a type of communication. Well, so if we say then miracles are thoughts, you understand you're receiving the direction from the Holy Spirit in the form of a thought. It's saying, hey, Lauren, help that lady who dropped her groceries. That comes in the form of a thought. Now, it may come so quickly, and then the action there that you don't really register. There's a bunch of thinking going on. But nevertheless, it's an impulse to engage with the other person. And it's a higher impulse. We're going to distinguish now between lower thoughts and higher thoughts. A lower thought would be, I don't know who that lady is. Her dropping groceries got nothing to do with me. Why should I be bothered? I've got my own life to manage. So that would be a lower order thought of selfishness in the midst of a situation that's happening right in front of you. A higher order thought would be one that takes note of a fellow human being who's in need and who is, without you hearing it verbally, is actually in that moment needs help. So miracles come from this higher order reality. They talk here about the basic distinction between intellectualizing and higher order thinking. It says elsewhere that the primary function of Holy Spirit is to help you learn to make this distinction. So let's say it another way. In the absence of understanding, this is true for everybody, so you know what I mean. In the absence of any understanding or insight, your higher order thoughts and your lower order thoughts all seem to be coming at once, and there's no distinction one between another, and there's a tendency to treat them all equally. A distinction, which the Holy Spirit helps us with, is to recognize an ego thought is not the same as a Holy Spirit inspired thought. To make the distinction, to recognize the difference. So miracles come from thoughts that are of a higher order reality. As we said before, their source is love. By the way, Lynn, nice to have you join us. We do get started at 11, so please keep that in mind for next time. Number 13. This is abstract. Miracles are both beginnings and endings of what? They alter the temporal order. They're always affirmations of rebirth, which is a beginning, which seems to go backward, but really goes forward. They undo the past in the present and thus release the future. Clearly, we're talking about time shifting here, and people tend to glaze over when we talk about that. And so let's try to simplify. Miracles are refreshing. It's the book I remember is called New Every Morning. Every day a new beginning. It's like being reborn anew with none of the baggage from the past to weigh us down, none of the troubles and conflicts from our past to weigh her down. It's the correct recognition that guilt and worry of the past, the illusions, have no meaning. And so we're going to not become occupied with that, but instead live in the present. So miracles are affirmations of rebirth, that right here, right now, we are alive and can choose to unite with the will of our Creator and be expressions of love. And that's all that matters. Let me contrast that for a minute with an ego thought that would say, I'm not really worthy of bringing forth miracles. You don't know what I've done in my past. I have many mistakes I've made, and therefore I can't bring forth miracles. That would be an ego entrenchment with past mistakes. Miracles help us to feel alive in the present, reborn, which seems to be a returning, but is actually a way of being released from the bonds of the past so that we can move forward. Miracles undo the past right now in the present, and thus enable us to be free in the future. And so whenever we talk about freedom in the Course of Miracles and becoming free, we also use the term to be released from the chains of the past. This is what we're talking about, to alter this concept that we are slaves of the past or victims of our past, to undo that concept and affirm that in the present is where we become free. And that allows us to move forward into the future without dragging the guilt of our past. Much more can be said on time shifting, but our purpose here is just to introduce the principles that miracles impact this attitude we have towards our past and our future, and free us to not be limited and self-judging towards ourselves or others regarding past and future, but to live in the present. Heather?
Go on.
14.
Miracles bear witness to truth. They are convincing because they arise from conviction. Without conviction, they deteriorate into magic, which is mindless and therefore destructive, or rather the uncreative use of mind. 15. Each day should be devoted to miracles. The purpose of time is to enable man to learn to use it constructively. Time is thus a teaching device and a means to an end. It will cease when it is no longer useful in facilitating learning.
So let me take up this number 15 because it has to do with time as well. Using each day. Miracles are natural. We talked about several a day. Each day should be devoted to miracles. They refer to being in a miracle-ready state of mind, where your main role is to not lose touch with your relationship to the Creator, so that you're always in that peaceful, secure, trusting view of yourself, life in this world. And so that positions your mind ready for a miracle. And then the opportunity arises often very spontaneously and unexpectedly. And so therefore, time becomes a teaching device, a way of learning and using it so that you can learn to bring forth healing and love in your life. Heather?
Yeah, I had an experience of that this week. I I was walking my dog. I had an appointment I had to get to, so I was kind of in a hurry. So I'm walking and I see a lady wandering and she's has an address she's looking for. She doesn't speak English, so she's looking for this address. So she shows it to me and I say, oh yeah, it's right around the corner, blah, blah, I point. And then I keep going and some thought said, you know what, you should have just gone back and shown her where it was because it's just around the corner. I said, no, I don't have time. I have things to do. So I went on around and then I see her walking so far away. And I finally I whistle to her and I say, hey, come over here, you know. So she comes over and I ended up walking her back to the address. So as I'm walking home, it just hits me and I hear, well, why didn't you just take her there the first time? It would have saved you both a lot of time. Why didn't you just, I gave you the thought, like go show her where it is, but I was too busy with my own time. And so I ignored it and did my own thing. And then it took twice as long. And I was like, and so I thought, oh my God, this is what this is talking about. I just read that. I thought, this is the purpose of time. It's like, listen the first time and it saved everybody time. So it was just funny when I read that. I thought, oh, I get it now. Finally, I get it.
Thank you. That's a very good illustration. Miracles are intended. There's a big theme in miracles with using time effectively, not squandering it, not missing out on the opportunities for miracles, but living in the present moment. That was another example Heather illustrated. She was really concerned about her future moments, about being somewhere else, living in the present moment and doing that which Spirit would have you to do right now. It's a state of mind that is often not practiced, preoccupation with the future and the past. So I want to wrap up. I know I skipped 14. We'll leave that on without comment. I want to skip to another way of understanding. This is an image that I found on the internet that I really like. So on the right, we've got a lot of motion, a lot of activity going on. It's very changing constantly and it's very chaotic. There's certain, if you will, laws of time and space and change that prevail there. On the left is a wholly different type of, can I call it reality, where it's very steady, very stable, unchanging, quiet, peaceful, reliable. And these can serve as a metaphor for the two different states of mind. We talked about the higher order state of mind and the lower order state of mind. And we said that to be miracle ready is to be conscious of the higher order state of mind and distinguish that between the chaotic, random, lower order state of mind. And so, really, miracles is about an awareness of source. And it's not magic, it's not a trick. It does involve a choice of where you will attend to and what you will feel, where you feel your identification with, and learn to love being in touch with. They use the word prayer here. That would be one way, but it's really consciousness, cosmic consciousness. Learn to be conscious of source and your relationship to it, and miracles will happen naturally because you chose to be present and in touch with the light within you. So that's as far as we're going to read today. There's lots more in Principles for Miracles. Kim, you had your hand up.
Yeah, so aren't miracles happening anyway? The way you just made that sound was that we need to be in the higher state of mind for the miracles to happen, but aren't they happening naturally anyway, but we just maybe can't see them because we're in the lower state of mind?
Yes. So right now, Kim, throughout all the vast creation, I'm sure there are a billion miracles happened during this last hour. Now, how many of them did you notice? Right? Well, maybe not very many, right? So yes, they're happening all over creation. As we said earlier, there's really cosmic view, one gigantic miracle of creation, and all the events of time and the events of your life are but extensions of that one gigantic creation. So yes, they are happening all the time. What we want to do is get with the program, get on the right page, which is the present moment, which involves consciousness, so that we bring our own mind and our own choices. Remember, we talked about thoughts that Felicia said aren't miracles thoughts, that we bring our own thoughts in line with those miracles, and then we become happy participants in them. To be miracle minded is to bring happiness to your life. Noelle?
I appreciated Heather's anecdote very much, and it made me think about how I sometimes think about in deciding to do something, oh, I'll lose time with this.
Yes.
Now that's ridiculous. How can I lose time? Time just is. And besides, I'm putting a judgment, a value judgment, a negative value judgment on this activity or that activity.
Yes.
And thinking that I'll be penalized in some way. Rather, as Heather corrected herself, for me, it's listening to the Holy Spirit. What should I be doing now? Even the most trivial thing. What should I be doing now at your direction?
It's very true, Noel. As a matter of fact, the ego's message would be talk about the value judgment of time. This is not worthy of my time. Or said more specifically, this person's not worthy of my love. I'm going to use my time invested in more worthy endeavors than with this person. And so when we see what the ego is really up to, it's really easy to say, well, that's not who I am. I don't choose to have those principles that I just cited guide my life. I would rather make myself available for love whenever it calls. And that's really is the ultimate working of miracles, is to be available to when love calls. All right, friends, to be continued. Thank you. That was starting out with page 1 of Miracles, and we'll pick it up again next session. Heather, thank you for reading. Thank you all for your attention. Look forward real soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
God bless.
Thank you. I have a quick question for you.